All right, it's 6:00 on Wednesday, September 13th, 2013. We have a select board meeting joint with the ad hoc bylaw committee. They, I don't believe, have a quorum at this point. So we have 4 members here in person, and our 5th member will most likely be joining on Zoom later in the meeting. We are being recorded. We are on Zoom, and we are being recorded for local access television now, as well as re-airing, rebroadcasting, and for YouTube and other outlets. Let's quickly start with the pledge, and then we'll get into our bylaws.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for joining us on a Wednesday night. I'd like to try to keep this to about 2 hours, Peter, so looking at 8:00. And we can get going. I think we've had 2 kind of full conversations about the Board of Public Works. I don't know how much more time we want to spend on it at this meeting. I feel like some of it needs to be digested and everything. I don't know how much work your committee has done on it, Peter. And then I think we will be moving into the finance committee bylaw.
So we did a little bit of restructuring. Purpose has been changed. We took out everything that said index, beyond those specified in 4169D. And it's been moved into the duties section. The board shall perform all duties enumerated in General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 69D, including, and I'm just waiting for town council to add, but not limited to, the one that we've seen many times, responsible for the maintenance and repair of town buildings. I've read that enough. I'm not going to read that again. The board shall be responsible for construction, maintenance, and repair of the public ways. That's the streets, the sidewalks, all of that. Fascinating thing, at some places in the general laws it says the public ways and sidewalks, but our sidewalks are within the right of way. They are part of the public way. So we didn't feel the need to call that out. Finally, the board shall perform duties assigned to water and sewer commissioners by the general laws. That's the easiest way. We started with act as, and we didn't like that. We talked about responsible for construction, maintenance, repair of the water and sewer works. But that doesn't work either because that doesn't cover abatements or any of the other duties. So we simplified it by just saying whatever the general laws says for water and sewer commissioners, that's in the Board of Public Works.
So I have a question about that. If we're
Yes.
pulling out specific roles and responsibilities of 69D, of 4169D, why are we not pointing out specific points in the water or sewer, and we're just referring to at least chapter 4169D points us to a specific section to look at, where it says to perform duties assigned to water and sewer commissioners by the entirety of the general laws. So to the conversation we had last time about trying to streamline but not have to be responsible for the entirety of MGL, especially as newly elected select board members, that seems to be
I can only simplify as much as I can simplify. The roles and duties of water and sewer commissioners are spread in many chapters and in many sections.
I know.
And so if I try to point them out, this bylaw will be 6 pages long. And that is a terrible mistake. 69D simply says that the Board of Public Works absorbs
Right.
those that don't exist.
I think that this is a conversation for
Yeah.
select board, because the conversation last time was about calling out specific parts of 69D so that we didn't have to go reference MGL. And my point is, I think that the water sewer piece is very important to 69D because that historically is how the Board of Public Works / select board has functioned. The primary responsibilities have been as water sewer commissioners, at least in the recent past, like 20 years or so. So I think it's important that if we're going to call out specific parts of MGL, of that section, that we include the water sewer. My concern is that it's the intent, I thought, from the board to call out these specific items of 69D were so that we didn't have to go to MGL and reference 69, chapter 41.
But 69D doesn't give any details about water and sewer commissioners. No. At all, zero. All it says is you now take the place of water and sewer commissioners as the Board of Public Works. That's all 69D says.
I know, and I understand that. So all I'm saying is that I thought that the board, this board here, our board, conversation last time was about calling out specific parts that this board felt important of 69D. And so that a select board doesn't have to go to chapter 49, 41, 69D and read it to see what it says. My point is that that section is short and readable. If we're calling out specific parts and then saying basically, go look at MGL for all of your responsibilities for water sewer commissioners, that's just as cumbersome as it's more cumbersome than saying just look at 41, 69D, I think.
Well,
This sentence right here says that all of these are in 4169D.
I understand that.
And there's no clarification there, so if you're looking for more, then you're looking for all the other things that don't technically apply because they're not part of the Board of Public Works.
And that was my point in including, we can move on.
Well,
And we're talking in circles, I think, because it's fine, we can move on.
if I may. If you look at chapter 41, section 21, that's where it authorizes selectmen to act as or appoint other town officers in regards to selectmen act as a water and sewer board. But it doesn't define the duties, it just says it does, water commissioner, water. So we would have to assign chapter 41, section 21 there, which is not really a duty.
Because that doesn't apply.
No, so that's what I'm saying, you'd have to use general law so it encompasses I see where you're coming from, and I also see where Leah's coming from. So to keep us from looking back, but water and sewer is probably one of the main things until we get into the future for maintenance and repair of our town buildings.
Right, and that's why I think, yeah, we can move on. I mean, it sounds like the ad hoc bylaw committee is pretty much set on this, so we can just move on.
Well, I mean, it's what we arrived at this week. I'm not saying it has to be the end-all be-all, but I don't understand what you want to be added to it.
I don't know I don't know either. All I'm saying is that I thought the conversation on Monday night was that rather than constantly refer to MGL, so that we could just essentially for section A, we don't need subsets 1, 2, and 3. Essentially, that is phrased in General Law Chapter 41, Section 69D.
Yes.
So we could just have Part A and that's it, and not have the subsections. Because if you read that, and that was my point last week, is why are we as a board choosing, and that was the vote of this board, we chose to include this, so that's, but if we're choosing to include stuff because we didn't want to refer future people to MGL, and then recent historic main function, as well as the kind of one of the main foreseeable functions of the Board of Public Works is to function as water and sewer commissioners. That's a huge piece. And to just broadly say, I totally understand that those roles and responsibilities are peppered throughout MGL. But to then say, go read all of MGL and good luck finding it, because that's essentially what we were trying to avoid by calling out these 3 subsections when we were just referring people to 4169D, where 4169D is a very targeted place to go and look. If a future board is looking at these bylaws and says, my roles are also, I need to go look at 4169D, see what this is, then they refer to other sections and you go down through that rabbit hole.
But it gets more complicated than that because there are no water and sewer commissioners per se. There is merely the Board of Public Works. And so if I were to refer someone to the 6 different sections and chapters that define the duties of the water commissioners, you have to be careful because they don't precisely apply. The duties do exist, but they don't apply as water commissioners, and so listing that out could be more confusing and more, no, I'll just leave it with confusing, just because you're not actually water commissioners. You have the duties assigned to the water commissioners, but you're not water commissioners. You have duties assigned to sewer commissioners, you're not sewer commissioners. You have the duties assigned to the highway commissioners, I believe those are also commissioners, but you're not highway commissioners. You're the Board of Public Works, which subsumed all of those.
I understand your frustration, Leah. My only objective in getting it this way was so that I could look at this and get some sense of what the Board of Public Works is. As a selectman, I guess I have an obligation to research if I still have questions, because not all the answers are going to be under this bylaw. But it's better, if you look at the old Board of Public Works bylaw, it's a heck of a lot better than that to help us define what some of our responsibilities are. And I think that was it. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole here either on that. I think that just highlighting some of the things in there, and then if we have questions, research it out. Because it's 69, what is it, 69 through 69F.
69C through F inclusive.
It spells out pretty much all the stuff of the Board of Public Works, and we can't, I don't think we should put all that in here. But
We can move on.
We'll go back and we'll look at it some more. That's what we can do. I changed B, the site, to say sites owned by the town. Board shall be responsible. Nope, still nobody there. For oversight and control of the mechanical operation of sites owned by the town which collect refuse. So, the town isn't responsible if we have a license for somebody who opens a transfer station in town. The town itself is not responsible because it's not a public work. It would only be for a site owned by the town. New one, the board shall be responsible for the municipal separate storm sewer system, which is to say stormwater management.
excuse me.
Isn't?
Is that the name that, like, I think the municipal separate storm sewer system is
the official name.
That's the
that
that's
is
my question,
frequently
is like-
abbreviated MS4.
okay. That was my question as far as, thank you.
I never knew that was what MS4 was derived from.
Yeah, and every time I have to look it up, because I always reverse storm and sewer. And in fact, I frequently call it storm water, but
Yeah, I was like, I think I've always heard like municipal stormwater or water sewer or something.
yeah, it gets, yes,
Gotcha.
that's what the EPA calls it, so that's what it's called.
Thank you. Is it worth, and maybe because nomenclature may change, but is it worth putting somehow referencing or known as, or collectively known as MS4 or something, since oftentimes regs are short-termed for MS4? I don't know.
That could be added very easily here, yeah.
I don't know if it makes sense or not.
I wouldn't say anything against it, because everywhere where the definition lives, it always has MS4 in parentheses afterwards, so putting it here is not a big deal. D, shall appoint a superintendent of public works, we've already had that discussion, no changes there. Do that.
Question for you,
Yes.
Peter, on, will this have to be amended if the enterprise fund proposal for a special town meeting, the funding mechanism where it becomes a utility, will will they then have to become water, sewer, and then it's MS4 or stormwater commissioners?
No, because that is not part of 69D,
What's it a part of?
EPA regs. Quite literally, EPA regs, that's where it all comes from.
So MGL doesn't have anything about stormwater yet?
Correct. However, just to make it more complicated, because nothing is simple with bylaws, the oh crap, what's the act? Tamika, what do we call, what's the act? It's not the watershed, it's the Wetlands Protection Act, thank you. The Wetlands Protection Act has a whole bunch of stuff about stormwater. And regulation for that goes to the DEP and through them, the Conservation Commission. But only when those appurtenances for stormwater are in or near wetlands. The act is silent on stormwater elements that are not jurisdictional to the DEP and the Conservation Commission.
Question for you, if you need an abatement, who would be responsible for the abatement of utilities of, for example, if someone was abating or requesting an abatement of their utility fee? Who would be responsible for it?
I would imagine it's the Board of Public Works, since we just made them responsible.
They're responsible for the system, but the utility is not necessarily for the system, it's for our compliance with that federal act.
The stormwater bylaw does not even mention abatements. So I don't know, is gonna be the really
Well, it probably
fast
doesn't
answer.
mention it because we just established an enterprise fund and we still don't
Right.
have a funding mechanism for it
Right.
yet. So I think, I mean, obviously it's premature until it's passed, but I just think we should be thinking about it as well.
I agree we should be, and furthermore, our current stormwater bylaw is not really functional because it doesn't do a lot, because DPW superintendents have been unwilling to add anything to it because there was no funding mechanism. Now that there the system's building up, there are some real changes we should consider to stormwater, which are not part of the current changes the current amendments, but future amendments should be in place to actually meet the entirety of the requirements of the EPA about permitting and ongoing observation and maintenance, and there's a lot there that is not in the current bylaw.
So along the similar lines, maybe, I'm not sure, do we need to, is Board of Public Works I don't know the proper administrator or overseer of the utilities themselves and those funds, the accounts, and does it need to explicitly be called out in a bylaw?
So I would think the fast answer is no, it doesn't need to be explicitly called out, and furthermore, yes, a utility, which is a public work, should fall under the Board of Public Works. That's my most informed opinion at this moment.
And so I guess if it's not 100% clear and we have one combined utility, a water sewer utility, and we're looking at MS4 utility, I mean, that account has been established. Should we not somehow explicitly say that the Board of Public Works is the overseer, administrator, something of the utilities?
Yeah, there's something kind of like duties assigned to, although I don't know there's a general laws place, and I'd hate to refer to the EPA regs, but maybe that's the right, let me look at that.
Okay.
I agree that there are some changes we need to make to make that more clear, yep. Anything else on A through C? D is exactly as it was before. And he is very close, but I took out a few extra words that it turns out were incorrect anyway. We said it before, other bylaws require a tree warden. The tree warden is under the responsibility of the Board of Public Works, therefore the board has to appoint the tree warden in order to meet the needs of our bylaws. Now, this is a question that came up recently. Does it have to be the Director of Public Works? No. It could be anybody who becomes the town official by being appointed the tree warden.
But it can also just be a job function of the Director of Public Works. Correct? Because
I think,
I mean, we-
yeah,
I
that's
think
true.
it
And
would be
then we
included-
wouldn't need to be explicitly appointed anymore.
right, it would be included in whatever, whether it's a yearly appointment or with the position, when the position is appointed / hired, that is then appointed / hired, like appointed as a tree warden.
Mhm.
Because I think historically, recently again with Gary and with Joe, it was a function of their job. And I think I do remember at one point when Joe was new, actually appointing him as the tree warden.
Right.
I don't remember if we appointed the one year that I was on before Gary retired, if we, in that round of appointments specifically appointed him, or if he was just because he was in that position and had at one point been stayed appointed. I don't think, we didn't yearly
I don't
appoint
know, I'd honestly
Joe.
have to go back to the,
But-
any of us would have to go back to the records. Okay, so we need to do some more cleanup on C, fine, and I should say clarification of C. And dig into a couple of these to see if we can make clear some of these other duties in A.
I got a question, Peter.
Yes.
On the tree warden, in MGL 41106, it says, such tree warden shall be qualified by training and experience in the field of arboriculture and licensed with the Department of Food and Agriculture in accordance with the provisions of section 10 of chapter 132B. The term of such appointment shall be for 3 years. Is our DPW currently licensed with the Department of Food and Agriculture?
I don't know, and it doesn't matter. Because the duties of tree warden have all been completely subsumed by the Board of Public Works.
So do one of us have to be licensed to the Food and Agriculture?
I doubt it, but I don't know that. That's a interesting detailed question the town council could probably get into.
I mean, I
But
know,
I
you know, experience in field of agriculture and all that, I'm just saying, if we're appointing somebody, does this Mass General Law just carry over to whoever we appoint? So if it's the superintendent, does he now have to be licensed, or we aren't doing our due diligence for the department?
It is not clear to me that that section of MGL applies.
Okay.
I just want to make a comment. I think, so a lot of those requirements also, if you want to be like a certified arborist, that's the mechanism to do so. Oftentimes it is an arborist or someone who has training in that field becomes a tree warden. Candidly, I don't think anyone who's ever been appointed a tree warden in this town has had that required training. I don't think Joe Buckley did. I don't think Gary did. I don't think any previous directors, nor would I would also be surprised if anyone on the DPW staff had that training. So you may be correct, probably something that was just missed because of lack of clarity with this whole Board of Public Works and tree warden.
I just want to get off on the right foot. So if it applies, okay, if it doesn't, okay.
It's not,
You'll
it
let
is
us know.
very much not clear to me.
Okay.
I remember a tree warden going back some years when we had some issues with trees down on Prescott Street when I was growing up there. And there was a call made to the DPW and it was turned over to the tree warden, who at that time was a DPW employee. Now how the designation came about, I have no idea, but I can tell you who it was too.
Does it have to be town staff? Can it be contracted out?
I don't think, I mean, I think it's an appointment, so I think it can be anybody that we want.
Yes.
It can be paid or not paid or contracted or not, I think. I
Yeah,
don't know.
and that person becomes a town official because they're acting on behalf of the town, if they're not already. But no, there are, to my knowledge, no functional limitations on who can be appointed.
That may help with your licensing requirements.
If indeed it is.
But then there'll be a line item, because I would assume it would be a salary, a contracted salary issue, concern, just as
Could be.
it's going to.
Or maybe we're lucky enough to hire another DPW person that has those qualifications.
Yeah, but there's other implications when you think about adding certifications and requirements as well that we should consider as well too.
Right.
So before we go on, Jen, can you hear us okay?
I can, yep.
Great.
Thank you. Our fifth member, Jen, joined on Zoom just a couple minutes ago, so thank you, Peter. Hi, Jen.
Okay, anything else in the Board of Public Works before we set that aside and go off and look at the joys of the Finance Committee? Let's scroll down a few pages. You've already been through your collector and accountant. Finance Committee, oh, there's a document I did not open, which I should have, shame on me, excuse me for one moment as I find that folder and that document, which is going to go up there, which I'm gonna have to now hold someplace I can see it as we review. Yeah. Oh, lady. La 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 la. Let me get down. All right, now I have them. Many, but by no means all of the changes to this bylaw are structural. Where did you go, please? The right thing, awesome. There shall be a committee of 7 members appointed to staggered 3-year terms by the moderator at annual town meetings, subject to ratification by the select board. That sentence is pretty much as it's been. It's not exactly the same, we've reworded it, but it is fundamentally the same content. But we thought that ratification should not, we the committee, thought ratification should not be open-ended. Ratification vote shall take place no later than the select board's first meeting following committee appointments.
I have a question about that. Tamika, do you remember when we typically ratify FinCom? Because oftentimes the first meeting after the FinCom's appointment is the new select board's organization and kind of initial meeting to get everyone's feet under them. And so I don't disagree with having it be as soon as possible. I just worry that given our current timeline and that the election is potentially happen, depending on how the timing works and meeting schedule wise and everything, that it could very well be the first meeting of the new select board also. That seems like a task that's could potentially be more beneficial to be put off till the second meeting potentially. I don't know, Tamika, I can't remember when we typically.
I don't remember specifically, it's in that timeframe. But
Yeah.
I don't remember if it's the exact first meeting after or if it's the meeting after that.
Right. And I know sometimes the select board will meet like within 2 days after the election and to do the board reorg and everything and move on. But more recently, because of election results, making sure that they're certified and appropriately counted and everything, as well as giving new members time to get sworn in and everything, we've been just doing the reorg at our next meeting. So I don't know, that was just one thing that jumped out at me in that is.
Well, one of the problems with putting it off is that for all practical purposes, there are 2 qualifiers that enable a finance committee member to serve. One is the town clerk, and the other is the select board and their ratification process. So the longer you put off the ratification process, the longer it is until new finance committee members may serve.
No, like I said, I'm not disagreeing that it should be as soon as possible. I just don't remember the timeline. I don't remember it being at the very next meeting, but maybe it is, I don't know.
I think there's another issue too here, and that is, you're asking a new board to do a lot without any, there'll be some members who will be on the board, maybe some new members. And I'm concerned that by having a new board take office so soon, that you're gonna have some issues there with these types of appointments. And my feeling is that if we could somehow change the timeline when the new board takes office, it still allows the old board now to consider these things before the new board takes office. There are certain things, from what I've seen, the old board needs to keep a handle on and then turn it over to the new board. So, we haven't discussed that at all?
Can't do
Do
that.
that though.
Huh?
What if somebody's going out bitter?
Right, I was gonna say, I
I
think,
disagree with that completely.
Well,
yeah,
That's why we have elections
What if
happening.
somebody
The
comes
whole
in?
lame duck issue is real even in select boards.
Yeah,
right,
Right.
right.
absolutely. That's why you have elections.
Right, but that doesn't mean the board takes office right away. Yes, you've been elected. But my feeling is, like I've discussed before, unless you really are up to speed as a selectman, when you come in and know all the bylaws, policies and everything, you're
Well,
not
it's
gonna.
tough. It is
It's
tough, yeah.
tough, so give the new select board a chance to get their feet wet. And
But I
yes, the
think-
old board may have to, but
I think if people, I mean, for me personally, if people are vested in running for select board, they're attending meetings before they're elected on, they're participating via Zoom or watching the meetings or something, so they're kind of getting their feet wet as that. I think the local elections hold a lot of, to kind of Tom's point, that there's a lot of reasons that people vote in elections, and sometimes it's because they aren't happy with the way appointments have been going in the past, and or if it's a contested election or something, there can be a lot of longer term fallouts, I think.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so I just pulled up the agenda and it looks like we did reorg and do the ratifications at the first meeting after
Okay.
town meeting this year.
Okay,
I just figured I'd check.
thank you for doing that, I appreciate
Yeah, no
it.
problem.
so I have a question. What's to say the new member doesn't come on, doesn't have an extra grind?
Right, but he just got elected.
Well, that's my
I mean,
point.
you can't,
But I'm saying is before.
you know, you don't, I mean, the ex-president doesn't make the policies for the new president. I mean, that's why we have elections, I think, you know.
But we have an election in November,
Right.
but the president doesn't take office till January. Congress doesn't take office until months after. There are, if I'm not correct, if I'm mistaken, there are cities or towns in this area that don't hold their first board meeting of newly elected right after the election.
There are some, Harry, but remember that the reason Congress and the president take their office later is because historically it has taken weeks to travel to Washington DC from various locations. In the state, it takes days, has historically taken days to get somebody from the western part of the state into Boston. That's why they were put in that way a couple hundred years ago. No, they haven't been updated. The timelines haven't, but there was a good reason for it 300 years ago. Whether or not it's a good reason now is a different
Yeah,
question,
yeah,
but,
absolutely.
but,
It's just a
but that's
tradition.
why
That's
things
just
are the
something that
way
could
they
be
are.
Yeah,
discussed
traditional
later.
format, yeah.
Yeah, I don't wanna take up time
yeah.
to
Yeah,
discuss.
you're right,
I understand.
that is a much longer, that is a very different discussion, Harry, you're right about that.
Jen has her hand up.
Oh. Yes, Jen.
Thank you. No, I just wanted to say, and if there is really a concern with a new select board member voting for a particular appointment, I mean, they can always either vote nay or recuse themselves from the vote, I'm assuming, right?
Absolutely.
If they are, so they don't have to vote in a positive manner for the appointments.
I think historically also the it's been more of a formality. The duties fall to the moderator. And so I think historically it's been more of a formality that the moderator has made the appointments.
I don't know though, cause B looks like that says basically if you reject it, then they don't get to serve.
Right. But I'm just historically it's been I think this is a executive legislative branch checks and balances kind of equivalent. And I think historically it's the people the moderator has appointed have had well-qualified backgrounds to serve, and it hasn't been at least since I've been in town,
I still don't understand the process of the moderator appointing, I mean, that's another whole story, but
Right.
Yeah.
I still don't get that,
Well,
but,
that may be a very good discussion to have with the moderator, because we've had the same one for
Yeah.
a number of years, and he has his process down. He's, to my knowledge, we haven't started an appointment cycle with an empty seat. And
And I guess if
no, nothing against the moderator
course not.
himself, I'm saying the process, I don't
how it
understand,
sounds.
If
yeah.
we look at transparency, which is what we're ultimately trying to do here,
Right.
what is the transparency for the moderator picking the people on the finance committee? What transparency is there? I don't see any,
No, I don't either, I agree with you,
and that's a concern I have.
but that's another whole thing,
Right.
but I agree, 100%, that's never made sense to me, but
And I
that goes
think
back 100, 200 years, right, I mean, a
Right.
long.
I think it's trying to separate a little bit from select board as a different branch, I think. But I don't know for sure, and in today's overall general function, how that plays out. But I think that at one point there was rationale for having a different avenue
Yeah, with
to that
somebody's cousin.
appointment.
And I'm not, I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is, what's the process for picking? Does the moderator want to let the select board know? Cause ultimately, we are in charge of the finances. That means that falls also to the finance committee. But we don't know anything about them or who we're working with or the process. So if there's a process there, I would like to know what the process is, if the moderator would let us know. That's all I'm saying.
No, I agree.
You know, I don't have a problem with him picking, but I'd like to know.
No, it's not about the him,
Right.
it's about the process, right,
Yes,
I
when
agree
it
with
comes
you.
time for me to vote on people, what, I have no idea what I'm voting on. That's, to me, a liability for me,
No, I agree with you, 100%. yeah.
okay? That's all I'm saying, so, you know,
Do we have a documented policy for that?
No, we do not.
no, right, we don't.
Can we
not to my
request
knowledge,
that
no.
Randy or whomever write one up?
Well, you look like you have something to say. You look like you're gonna blow right out of your chair in a second.
It's been a political football for a number of years, so.
I don't know if you could tell him to write a policy because he's an elected official.
Right?
Probably not, he can do whatever he wants, yeah. I just, that's the way it is, it's the way it's always been, I'm sure, but I just,
It can be changed by town vote, but other than that, no, there's
Right.
nothing. we can-
Well, since we just changed it from a 1-year to a 3-year election,
right.
Sorry, I was gonna look, but you probably know. Does MGL state that moderator is the appointing authority for FinCom?
no,
That's a select, not a select board, that's a town bylaw?
that is town bylaw.
And when was that
Day one.
since the inception of town?
Since 1941.
Do we have a moderator bylaw?
No, we've never had a moderator bylaw.
Is that something to consider, where that could be outlined, plus the duties of the moderator?
Yeah.
We thought about it and decided that we didn't want to extend our charter in that direction, in adding new things unless it was really necessary, the town administrator being one that was particularly necessary.
Okay.
Well,
I
but
mean, in the past, if it's when the appointment time does come, I mean, has there been any additional information provided with those people that are getting the appointments to, like, do they have to have certain qualifications, or is it just
No.
I don't
we
think,
approve them?
I think it's generally, since I've been on the board, I don't think we've gotten any like summary biography or anything. We've just gotten a list of appointments at that next meeting. And I think generally it's done at the end of annual town meeting, right before adjournment. And I think oftentimes, a lot of times, not everyone even hears just because it's the end of all the voting and people are packing up and waiting to adjourn and everything. I don't know for sure, consistently, but I know a couple years it's been that way.
Leah, if I may, Jen, so I was just gonna add that historically, the town moderator has been completely independent in how he chooses members of the finance committee. And last year when I joined the office, I asked if our office could be involved in trying to get some public interest in serving on the committee, so that we could try to do similar to what we do with the other appointments, where we get a letter of interest, we kind of know who the person is, you know, are they qualified to serve? And it was not well received, so
Not well received by,
the moderator
on the
and
finance committee too?
some members of the finance committee.
Okay,
So at this time,
that's
there's
a fact, right?
no,
That's not hearsay.
correct, so there's no requirements and there is no policy in place for who can serve on the finance committee and how they're chosen.
But even Peter, you made a comment about the 3 years. The 3 years has to do with the moderator. That's not to say we can't bring it to the town and let the town decide.
No,
As far-
absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to say
yeah,
it
nobody's
can't be
saying,
done.
again, it's not about, I look at this the same way some of the other things. It's not about the individual person. It's about the process.
Right.
You know,
I
yeah, I know people take offense to it, but it's not about that, but.
No,
Yeah, I mean, I had to submit a letter of interest and, you know, just even for the historical commission. So, I mean, for something as important as the finance committee.
Right.
Why they would not be, at minimum, required to share a letter of interest that's stating their intentions and why they're interested. I don't understand why we can't ask for that to be
that doesn't give a lot of transparency to me.
No, it's
I agree.
good old boy.
Yeah.
It just doesn't give a lot of transparency.
No.
Now, I will say that as I understand it, and this is pure hearsay from my point of view, the desire to keep the appointments out of the select board was a political one, to remove the political nature of the appointments from the finance committee. That's my understanding.
No, I understand, yeah.
I can understand,
No, I
but
understand. We should at
in
least have,
town, there's no such thing as disassociating politics, even if it's 1%. I'm sorry, that's the nature of the town. So,
the population of this town has also changed.
Right.
So if you're able to get people to show up
right,
and make them understand what we're talking about, you might be surprised. I know in years past, because let's face it, 6,000 registered voters, 100 people show up.
right. You know, I was talking with Joe about, you know, appointments and getting people to join. And the finance committee came up, and this is nothing wrong against Joe, but he said, you know, if somebody doesn't have the skill set, doesn't have this, but does have a desire to really do right on the finance committee, then you don't need all those qualifications if somebody has a true desire to do it.
As
And I
long
think-
as there are enough people on the board who do
Right,
have
right.
whatever qualifications.
I mean,
Right,
that's a
right.
special skill. I think you need to know something about
I mean,
finance.
there's something, I mean, you gotta do your own
should.
books at home, for sure, you gotta take care of
Yeah.
your own budget, and pay your checks, you gotta know something about that. but so it doesn't have to be total, what I'm saying is, if we get people who are interested, we could submit those to the moderator.
Right.
It's not our job to hire them initially, let them, so why we wouldn't be interested, they wouldn't be interested just from a town's perspective, blows my mind. Blows my mind, when we could they could be helped by getting.
Again, I think the town is changing,
Yeah,
and I think, you know, whoever voted on it the last time they voted on this, the population has changed, and it's
Yeah.
continuing to change. And again, if you might be surprised, a vote 10 years ago is not gonna be the same vote today, so.
I mean, I was surprised at who volunteered for the CIPC. People that I wouldn't have suspected, you know, I mean, I got a salesman and contractor, I mean, who knew out of there that people wanted to do on the CIPC?
Right.
But that's my point,
Right,
they're changing.
absolutely, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Now, let me throw a little
Uh-oh.
gasoline on the fire. There is nothing that says the select board could not, so therefore the select board could pass a policy that says that you will only ratify finance committee, potential finance committee appointees upon discussion with the moderator and the letter of
There you go, at the-
interest
at
and
the
whatever.
bare minimum.
And that way, you do have a little bit of say, not in the process of how they get there,
Right,
but of seating.
No, at the bare minimum, I think that's a good idea, cause at least we'd be able to talk to the moderator and say, well, why do you feel this person
right.
belongs on the finance committee?
And for that matter, talking to the appointee themselves.
Right. No, I
I'm
like.
doing it because I'm interested. I do it because I am a CPA or whatever the
Do
qualifications
the
are.
chief, why do you think you wanna hire this person? You know?
Right, absolutely.
So I have written down that to explore a policy and then potentially, once, I would assume possibly once the, a permanent bylaw committee is seated, revisit potentially a town moderator bylaw. I don't, because for the other elected boards and commissions, Board of Health, Planning Board, library trustees, I'm not sure that we have the bylaws for the other elected positions.
And that's exactly, again, to get to the point, it's an elected position, and so we let MGL rule, we, the committee. So we said there's the value, there is value, but that's better left to the charter to do. When they have to do all the elected positions and all the appointed positions to do it correctly.
And I think as town grows and everything, the way the finance team is being reevaluated, maybe especially with the town administrator position and everything also, to better piece out all of that. Because in the past, the finance committee was the ones, the financial overseers of the town. And now as the town has grown and we have, as I always say, as the town has grown and we've professionalized, the boards and commissions become more of an oversight advisory pulse of the electorate and the residents themselves versus the absolute controllers.
And let's also remember, MGL doesn't say you shall have a finance committee or an advisory committee. It's the town may. If we were to fully professionalize the entire financial system, personnel of the town, one could ask if we even need a finance committee at that point, or if we do what their real role is and how that can change.
If I might, I'd like to read a piece out of the handbook for Massachusetts Selectmen from the MMA in regards to this, and it says, while the Finance Committee plays a vital role, it is within the executive authority of the selectmen or their appointees to prepare the town's budget. The selectmen have ultimate responsibility to the residents for this service. The Finance Committee's responsibility is to review the budget submitted to them and to make recommendations regarding the budget to the town's legislative body. And my thinking is that if we have a Finance Committee that is top-notch, professional, so to speak, but not really super professional, it makes everybody's job easier. Because we're in communication. We submit the budget to them, they review it, they kick it. So, and now we have a town administrator to help us out with that. But it's ultimately the selectman that has control, because we put the warrant on for the budget.
But I think if I may, Peter, I think what you were saying was, we have a town administrator. We're gonna have a new accountant, right?
We have a new accountant, we'll have a new treasurer, Becky.
New treasurer.
Treasurer collector.
And if things go well, we're gonna have an HR director. So I mean, we have a core group of professionals that are in money, in finance.
Right.
So, is that what you were saying? Cause I agree with you if that's what you're saying. No, whereas
well,
there may
I-
come a time where we say, why are we butting heads with, you know?
Yeah, I am not suggesting that the
No,
people
I
that
agree.
we have laid out today would replace the finance committee. I would
Right.
imagine that we would need additional staff to make that happen. But when that staff is in place, the question of the finance committee becomes more real to me. I think that until we're ready, we, the town, are really ready to take that step
Right.
and make for lack of a better word, a true financial department that does all the treasury and all of the accounting and collecting and all of the management of the finances of the town and works with the town administrator to get the budget together. I'm not saying there isn't a value to the finance committee. I'm saying I don't know for sure what that is.
Right.
And yes, that is absolutely a future discussion.
I mean, I think the finance committee does a yeoman's job for what they have to do. And I think there's a lot of uncertainty among the townspeople as to exactly what their job is.
Or
And
the
I-
authority they have.
or authority they have. And I think by having a little more interaction between who gets put on that will go a long way to helping the town see that it's not just the finance committee, the select board's involved in the process too.
Right.
To make it more transparent. I mean,
I agree transparency has historically been a problem with the finance committee. It's not that they are caught between two worlds, or at least two worlds, and one is where things are at the moment that we have a plan, and something that changes, and the plan has to change, and if you change the plan and you publish each of those additions, you do nothing but create confusion in the public. And so during the budgeting process, I happen to believe that the finance committee is not doing a sufficiently transparent job of identifying where we are with the budget. But I don't know what the right solution is either in a way that doesn't cause confusion and concern because things aren't done. So I don't want to suggest that I have an answer. I do not. It's a tough problem. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
That's okay. Historically, finance committee has prepared a budget and presented it to the select board. Okay, and it's pretty much okay, it's accepted by the select board and it goes to the town warrant, all right?
Most
So
of
in
the
other
time,
words,
yeah.
this has been the way it's been. And if we're gonna suggest change to it, well, we should probably know what type of change that we're talking about too.
There should be a lot of discussion about these
Yes.
changes when it
Yes.
comes time. No question about that.
Peter, may I just ask a procedural question?
Yes.
So if the town moderator appoints somebody and the select board chooses to reject that appointment, does it have to go back to town meeting for the town moderator to appoint?
We will talk
Another
about that
person?
down below this.
Okay, never mind then.
Peter, there's no one in the waiting room. I just know when Jen was in the waiting room, there was that little bit of speaker hum, and I hear it again, but there's nobody in the waiting room.
That's the condensate pump on
Okay,
this unit in the control room going off right now.
alright,
No, there's nobody in the waiting room.
okay, thank you.
Oh.
Can I ask a question on the members?
Yes,
So there's 7 committee members. Is that MGL or is that also just bylaw?
nope, just the bylaw. That may have changed, the number of members may have changed over time, I haven't tracked every change to this bylaw, but as
I'm
long
just
as I've been
curious
around,
as
it's
to
been
where
seven.
7 came from.
Right. Yeah, I have no idea what the history of 7 members is.
I have no idea what the history of the 7 members is. I think, thinking about it just quickly on my feet right now, I think odd number, obviously for voting purposes, and having a higher quorum requirement means that I would think that you're having more participation in meetings that were having financial impact, but I don't know for sure.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the original bylaw, so I don't know when that was written.
41.
Yeah, so we've had 7 since 41.
Mhm.
Okay.
So, sorry, Jen, were you thinking that 7 was high or low?
I guess my initial thought was that it was high, like, do we need 7 on the finance committee? It seems like a lot of the other boards are 5. But your comment there made sense, you know, for financial related matters, if there's something a little bit more contentious, having a higher number of people to, you know, ensure their agreement of how that moves forward. That seems to make sense to me. I was just curious.
Yeah.
I don't have a strong feelings on it one way or the other.
And I don't either, similar to you, Jen, I think I thought 7 was high initially, but then hearing that it was 7 in 1941, when the population was a fraction of what we are now, and it is.
I can't be certain about that, I'd have to go through
I mean,
all-
it sounds like what
Yeah.
Harry has the original from 41, it sounds like, I don't know for sure, but
I have it here, it says adopted February 3rd, 1941, Article
But
16.
but that's not the 1941 edition. That's just
No,
what is
this-
on our web.
No, this is the original one I printed off our website that you
Right, that's not the 1941 edition, this is our
Amend.
current, right.
No.
So that's when it was passed, it doesn't say this text was passed. This
Oh.
is after all those amendments.
Okay. So the last amendment that would have shown up was probably 1970. Other than that, I don't think anything's changed since 1970 on this,
So
but.
So still, even from 1970 till now, our population has changed, increased significantly, and so our ratio of FinCom members to population
Right.
has spread, but
True, if I were to guess, and this is just a guess, cause it's my memory, and never, ever, ever trust my memory, especially when I'm tired. But I believe the max is 9 by MGL.
I was gonna say, it hits a point that we see with school committee, right, that it becomes dysfunctional when it's too large, so I think but it's an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly talk with Anita to get the complete history if we're interested about when we changed, if we changed the membership size.
I think recent history also is similar to all other appointments, finding people willing to serve on FinCom or any other board and commission is not an easy task in today's environment. So and it's not just political environment, it's just the work requirements, the home requirements and everything. So I think increasing it would be tough, but
Yeah, I don't, at this
Yeah.
point in time,
right.
no, we don't even know how this is gonna work out yet, let alone changing the
Right.
number. And did the finance committee review this bylaw?
Yes, they have.
Okay,
It met with they voted to approve this version of the bylaw.
okay.
So we'll look at the timing in 3A1. So that's a question.
Oh, I don't think it matters. It only matters, I mean, whether you have the old board, because the new one hasn't set yet, or the new board's coming in, it's still gonna be the first meeting of it. So I don't think, in my opinion, that's an issue.
I don't know, Elio, you were concerned, so I wanna.
I had just asked how we had done it historically, and Tamika said at least this last meeting, or this last cycle through, we had done it at our first board meeting, so if maybe we can work with the moderator and establish a policy that the moderator would be available and or provide letters of interest or some sort of background on whom is being appointed. It's by town bylaw, not technically a select board appointment, so we should be it's a ratification vote, so
Right.
we should, but if we can maybe work with the policy to have them in, I think that first meeting is fine.
Okay.
Thank you. And thanks Tamika for checking on it for us. No problem.
Other words, we haven't talked, select board's failure to hold a ratification vote shall be considered a ratification. You don't vote at all, then you've approved them, silently assented. And any appointment rejected by the select board shall constitute a vacancy on the board, and vacancies are covered further down in this bylaw. Very important, no town official or employee, yes, even though a town official is an employee, but again, broad language for simplicity. No town official or employee shall be eligible to serve on the committee. Oh, I went to the wrong one. No, I didn't. Appointment terms commence immediately upon qualification, and expiring terms end at the adjournment of the annual town meeting.
Okay, number 3.
Mhm.
What is the qualification? There's a term that's in there that has no definition.
Qualification, I've actually already answered that question. Qualification is by the town clerk doing her duty, or his duty, as it may be, and a ratification vote by the select board. That's qualification.
Okay. So it
I
has
mean,
nothing.
if you look at qualification historically, when an ambassador comes to the United States and meets with the President of the United States, the acceptance of the letters which define his or her qualification is the qualification. So that's all that this is in this case.
So it has nothing to do with, quote, qualifying an individual to be on the.
It has nothing to do with ensuring that there are qualifications of a job that are met. Yes, correct.
All right.
I think it's one of those weird ones where appointment can mean how we appoint to boards and commissions, as well as appointment as hire an employee, kind
Yeah.
of. So I think it's another one of those somewhat antiquated phrasing,
Old English.
Yeah.
legalese.
That's right, and you're both right, because it's all based in historic language, because lawyers don't like to change any more than other people do.
Okay.
Nope, that's not what I wanted to hit. I guess I need to go here. So, here's how this is how vacancies get filled.
Now, B was not in the original.
Yeah, it
On
was.
some of that.
No, there is some that was not there, that is correct, there are.
Okay, so this was
There's a
what?
lot of clarification here that was not there before.
Okay.
So the fundamental content of B1 has always been there, which is that the committee themselves fill vacancies. No qualifications by the select board, nothing, it's just by vote of the committee, nothing to do with the moderator.
That's on number 2.
This is one.
B1.
B1, the committee shall fill by majority vote any vacancy in its membership. That's what that says. They themselves do it. Term of said member shall expire at the final adjournment of the next annual town meeting. So it's not an appointment to an original term. It's an appointment only till the next moderator appointment.
Okay, so I guess I'd have to ask the committee, show me the transparency here.
There is no.
Show me who you're hiring, what the qualifications are, and if you're going to accept it that you don't want our vote, then you have to do double due diligence because now you don't have an organization looking at this. So I don't understand.
Well, I
Why?
will say.
So I can't
Yeah.
go along with that one.
This is the way it has been since 1941. They've always done their own thing. They've always
Which-
acted independently.
So Harry, would you prefer that it's pending a ratification vote of the select board, similar to how it is up in A with after the moderator appoints that
Yeah, but C in this thing says, such interim appointment need not be ratified by the select board.
Right, and what I'm asking you is you would rather that it is ratified by the select board?
Yes.
Okay, so here, let me ask a question. What is your action? What is your belief should happen if the finance committee does not allow that change. Because remember, they approved this bylaw in its form.
Right.
And furthermore, the charge of the committee was to codify current town behavior. And that's what this is. I'm sorry, go ahead, Jen.
Sorry, I'm just, I 100% agree with Harry, because what's to stop somebody from being appointed through the ratification process to then resign immediately, and then they can go and fill that position without any other approval or notification to the select board? Like, that to me is almost just as political as the select board voting for who should be on the finance committee.
Maybe even more so,
More
just
so,
because
yeah.
there's, I think, less, in some ways, less transparency, because we are the elected board, and
Right.
I don't have a problem with, I guess I don't necessarily have a problem with FinCom or the moderator bringing forward someone, but if we're trying to establish some level of transparency, and we're gonna continue with this, then I think maybe the ratification piece is important.
May I ask a question?
And Peter, question for you, if we were to make a change and the finance committee does not approve of that, does that mean that it can't go to town meeting and it's in that form?
It creates controversy at town meeting. Because anybody who doesn't agree with it, and I submit to you that there are several members of the finance committee who would not go along with that change. If the bylaw committee forces that, then there will be long, horrible discussions and arguments at town meeting.
Well, I think,
We might need to have
That's
those.
the right thing to do.
We might need to have those.
and I think also having the public information sessions for a bylaw, because I think the public may feel differently than the select board or FinCom. And unfortunately, getting those people to a public information session to get that feedback is going to be tough. It's going to happen at town meeting.
Right.
I think there's a lot of pieces of a lot of these bylaws that people, if they attend the town meeting for the bylaws, are going to want to dissect. And it's not specifically this bylaw. And so I think it's a reality of undertaking such work. And I guess sorry Tamika, give me, and I guess if part of it is if I think I need to push back a little bit, and if in one breath you say the charge of the committee was to codify and streamline the bylaws and kind of do what is in practice, and that's your argument for this bylaw, but then there's other bylaws that have changed more significantly, or have been created or are not streamlined across the board. I think that's not a necessarily valid argument, me personally.
I completely agree with you, Leah, and I think too, like we have to remember that the committee is the one that's seated right now, but the intention is to pass this bylaw for a length of time.
Right.
And just because the members themselves might not agree with it, doesn't mean that the residents wouldn't say, hey, we would like to have transparency, in this process.
We're
And
doing this to try to do the right thing for each one of these
Exactly, so
bylaws,
it
not
makes
just saying, well,
sense.
it's gonna
Right.
create a problem at the meeting. Oh, well, that's what the meeting's for, I mean.
And I think a lot of the public conversation and frustration around especially the budgeting season is understanding how the members of FinCom in this instance are seated, because there is not a lot of knowledge or transparency, Harry and Tom, to your points. And so
But
I
I-
think
Yeah, sorry.
in a way to do that is to, again, not take the power completely away from any FinCom or moderator per this bylaw, but add in a ratification so it comes before a public meeting where there's a conversation about the qualifications and
Make the public understand, all we want to do is make sure that the people that are being appointed are being appointed for the right reasons,
Right.
and they're people that we as a town feel are qualified to be handling our finances. or overseeing our finances, I should say.
And
I
it's,
don't think
it's
that's
just
unreasonable.
consistency too with how they would be appointed at the beginning of the term. I mean, to me, I don't understand why there would be a difference because somebody has to resign for whatever reason. That it would be a different appointment process. And it's just a checks and balances thing.
Right. And so I guess it's interesting to me that it's at this point, it goes directly to FinCom and not back to the moderator to name
Yeah.
a replacement, and then it also does not follow the same ratification process. I guess I'm less willing to argue who brings forth the person, whether it's FinCom or the moderator, but I think that in either way, it's important to have another presentation.
Well, I guess my question would be, how would the town feel if they knew if it was possible, the CIPC would pick their own people and appoint them? It doesn't have to go through you, we don't have to request anything. What about RDIC? What about all the other committees out there that do right, solicit, send it to the select board, who's qualified, you get to make the final decision, and yet not here. I'd like to know their reason for it, why they wanna do that, and not have the transparency out there for the town.
Right, and again, we have to try to make people understand, it's not about the man or the person making the
The
decisions.
individual, it's the process.
It's not the individual,
Transparency.
regardless of who it is 50 years from now. The moderator should have to say, I like this person and this is why, that's all. And then I don't understand why anybody would be against that.
I mean,
Just
this is
out
the
of
first time
curiosity,
we really
are there
looked
any
at this
other
bylaw.
committees that can appoint their own without having to go through the select board?
No,
I don't think so, no. I think anytime there's a vacancy, it's, the select board usually tries to publish the vacancy lists as well as the committees may know people or whatever, but they still need to come before the board, that
Right.
normal process.
Then that just even more so to me should not be in this bylaw.
agreed.
Right.
Unless they can provide some sort of valid reason and bring it back to us for review or to explain. I'm all for completely striking that and adding in a ratification vote. I mean, if anything, it's, yes, I understand this is how it's historically been done, but I think things are changing. We're starting to get new board memberships, and just because it always has been doesn't mean it has to continue to be this way if people are
And I think,
looking for change.
Jen, to that point, I think I look through the bylaws and try to think, this is how things have quote unquote always been done or historically been done. And what are the conversations and frustrations that we hear from town as a whole
Yes.
around these different things that the bylaws are trying to govern. And I think one of the big things that I hear, and it comes up during budget season for sure, is the transparency around FinCom membership and more recently, the involvement of the budgeting process with FinCom, town administrator, and everything. So I think ways to address both of those are, and I'm not trying to take the power away from the moderator, or if FinCom brings forth their request to fulfill a vacancy, but I think that it shows that there's some level of cooperation or at least cohesion, and another set of 5 elected members' eyes on things versus 5 or 6 appointed members appointed by one elected official, ratified by 5.
I guess the only thing I have a problem with is the fact that it shall not be ratified. You don't wanna go through the moderator, you wanna do your own thing and pick a guy, that's fine, or a girl, that's fine. You wanna go through the process and all that, but yet you don't wanna tell anybody about anything before this? No transparency, I don't know, again, so Such interim appointment may not be ratified by the select board. That's the only piece in there, C, that I don't agree with.
Well, we can talk about it at the committee. I'm going to repeat what I said before, and then I'm gonna add just a little bit to address something you said, Leah. The charge of the committee was not to make the most perfect government. The charge of the committee was to document, describe the actions of the town today. And the changes that come in have either been expressly requested some number of years ago now, the town administrative bylaw, or we documented, we have made the laws conformant with Mass General Law. And those are the limits that we tried to place on our changes.
I think that's fine, Peter, but I think it's still within our
Worth fighting for.
purview to request a change.
That's what this is for. We're supposed to be streamlining or making our government work for us, and
Right.
this needs to be looked at.
If the moderator has to have it ratified, why doesn't the committee itself? What special issues do they have that says we don't have to have it ratified? I don't know. I mean, nobody's come here, nobody's talked to us. All we have is Peter saying it went through the committee. So again, we're having a bylaw meeting tonight. This was on the agenda. I was hoping somebody from finance might have been here to explain some of these things, but nobody showed up. Or nobody was even on Zoom. So we, as a board, I guess, are gonna make a decision.
Right, I have a note to look at that.
Okay.
So it is possible that there are enough vacancies that the finance committee doesn't have a quorum. That's possible. It's unlikely, I haven't seen it happen, but it's possible. So the committee wanted to put in something to deal with that specifically. So if at any time the committee does not have enough members to constitute quorum, they can't therefore take a vote to fill members. The town moderator shall timely appoint members to fill all vacant committee seats for the remainder of the term, subject to ratification by the select board as set forth above.
So again, inconsistency where that requires a ratification, but not the previous one. That makes no sense.
And it's the moderator setting, I get it because they don't have a
Right.
quorum, but it's still the moderator.
Right.
Right.
So I guess this line makes me even wonder if the moderator should be the one from start to finish and with ratification by select board, start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Peter, would that require town meeting for the town
Exactly,
moderator to
my question.
appoint?
Yeah.
Nope. This is just the town moderator appointing,
Okay.
just like the select board appoints anytime they darn well please.
May I ask then why it's always done at annual town meeting?
Yeah.
Is that just a,
That's
We did it
an
'cause it's always
historic
been done.
thing, and it's because the term, where is it? Expiring terms end at the final adjournment of annual town meeting. So at the end of town meeting, that seat is vacant.
but may I ask why? Why isn't it June 30th like everybody else? Because it's still the same fiscal year.
Because fundamentally, their job is done at the end of town meeting after the budget's passed.
Well, that's not true because they still meet to do interdepartmental transfers, which are part of the
Yeah.
budget that they worked on previously.
That's true, but that can actually be considered extra cycle. Historically, this is the way, again, it has always been, and if we wanna change it, I mean,
I have to say, with all due respect, one of my biggest frustrations in town is that a lot of times we do things because it's the way it's always been done, whether it's right or it's wrong or it's efficient. And so, to Leah's point, I feel like we've made such significant changes with other bylaws. And I feel like this one we're trying to leave alone to avoid conflict with another committee when it's maybe still not the right thing.
Right.
Yeah, no,
It just doesn't, I don't know, some things just don't make sense.
I think
I've
it's
always
awesome.
wondered,
but in that case, hold on, in that case, why is it June 30th? Because things extend beyond June 30th.
Right, but at least June 30th is the end of the fiscal year, so that to me makes sense that they finish out their duties through the end of the fiscal year. It's just odd to me that it ends at town meeting and then, so the moderator appoints them at town meeting, but then if something happens after town meeting, you don't need a town meeting for the town moderator to appoint. So it's just to me, as like a constituent, that's very confusing.
And I think to your point, Tamika, the other boards and commissions have a July 1st start, the other appointed boards and commissions have a July 1st start. And also, we've known in the past that and I don't know if it's actually happened, but there's always the contingency that if things are contingent on an override passing and it's not passed and town meeting is done such that we need to have an emergency town meeting to get an amended budget through, that amended budget process and new town meeting before the June 30th deadline would be with a new.
A partially new finance committee by the current bylaw, yes.
Right. And so I think the consistency of July 1st appointments and fiscal year and everything, I've always questioned. I thought it was MGL. MGL is not stating it. I thought it was bylaw. I don't know that it's ever stated why it was ever, if it was explicitly stated in the original bylaw, or if it's just that that's what we historically have done, so now we're trying to put it in a bylaw. But I think that would.
But again, this is also where things get slightly confusing if you're not careful, because appointing terms commence immediately upon qualification, which is the behavior, which means that if it's not right at the end of town meeting, effectively.
But we decide this, not MGL, so we could change those words.
We could change a lot of words, but.
Right. And I think, other boards and commissions are, and I forget how we have it worded here, because I know that this was some conversation previous, was that we had to have the new appointments done by July 1st, or they became vacancies. And I know that there was conversation about if we are having problems hearing back or whatever, having that hard and fast go to a vacancy could severely hinder functioning boards and commissions. So I don't remember how we have it worded currently, but I know that was some of the conversation is, should it automatically go to a vacancy if there's not an appointment by July 1st? Or should it be assumed that it continues until a further action has been made, whether it's a reappointment or a reappointment of current?
The proposed bylaw makes it a vacancy. Unless there's something in general laws that say otherwise, like for Conservation Commission.
But, so I think it would still be by July 1st, we would have those appointments. So that would be, I would assume the moderator would then follow a similar process to what chair boards or other boards and commissions do, and submit. It would be the moderator themselves submitting to the select board the list of of appointees, and it's less of us making the appointment and more of a ratification vote, but it's still would be effective, they would be effective, so that would happen probably sometime in June, I would assume, the second half of June, and it would be effective July 1st, is, I think, end would be June 30th and start would be July 1st.
One of the things I don't understand, and I'm with you, Tamika, on this, we have a town meeting and the moderator appoints the new finance committee. And then within a matter of a couple of days, we're required to either say yes or no to these appointees. So you have a few days there where it's like, here you go. You throw it on our face and it's like, okay, what are we gonna do? We don't know anything about them. It's almost like, I feel like it was a rubber stamp. Because that's all we could do, yes or no. And that shouldn't be the way it works in the town of Rutland.
Nope.
There's no transparency there. There's no justification, there's no understanding, there's nothing. So that I don't understand. And now we put in that 20-day rule. Well, what if there's an emergency meeting? There's no allowance for that under the 20-day rule. So if we don't meet, because now we really don't have sitting members because he appointed them and we haven't, it's like, boy, is this messed up. So yeah, I would like to see, the finance committee and the select board really work together to show the town we can really do things good, and the moderator as well. And things like this just kind of throw up a roadblock.
Is part of what you're saying that the moderator should have maybe a job description to go by to fill these positions?
For such an important position, I don't know, what do you think, Paul? Yes, no?
Well, at this point in time, I would probably say, you know, that there should be some prereqs in there that would say, you know, you should have some, some ideas of what finances are and this sort of thing. In other words, you know, I don't think that there's anybody that's been on the committee that has not had some idea what finances are. But nevertheless, you know, would it be something that you want to put together a thumbnail on, or what? It's just an open question as far as I'm concerned.
Personally, I think doing a bylaw is gonna be tough, time consuming, but doing a policy would be a lot easier to start streamlining things. Because once we go to a charter, what happens to the town moderator under a charter?
Depends on what's written in the charter.
Okay, so when we
And
go to a
the same
charter.
thing is true for the finance committee. The same thing is true for every elected board and every appointed board. They're all defined by the charter,
Okay,
which again is where fixes were intended to be. Our bylaw job was not intended to make a better government.
you know what I would say is, I'd even give them the benefit of the doubt, not to say any individual, but the committee itself. If we bring this up again, we're not gonna, may not finish it, we may not finish it tonight, but there's some issues that have to be dealt with, and I would invite somebody from the finance committee to come here and explain to the board if they feel it would help, why they put this thing together, why, besides historical, besides we've done it for 40 years, why they don't want the appointment to be ratified by the select board.
I agree, Harry. I think it's, I understand the charge of the bylaw committee, but I feel, speaking personally for myself, I feel like I would be remiss in my duties as a newly elected official not to question, at least, at the very bare minimum, you know, just because, like we've been saying, just because it's historically been this way, doesn't mean that we can't make modifications to it if we feel it's the right time and place. And it just doesn't make sense to me if we don't have the ability and we're not willing to make any of those changes. I understand some of them may be a little confrontational whenever they get presented, but then why are we even bothering to review them in the first place if it's just,
Right.
if not to question and consider change?
And I think it's not unwarranted in the sense that I hear as an elected official, a lot of residents struggling with the process of FinCom and FinCom's role. And I think it's been, over the past few years with the town administrator position, it has become even more murky. And so if we're trying to clarify FinCom's role in relation to a town administrator position and more professionalized government, and also how that level of transparency and how they're chosen or selected, I think is important also. And all of that, to me, in what I hear from people who struggle with the whole process, all go together. So I don't think that we're necessarily, yes, maybe we're trying to improve government, but we're trying to address concerns. We could say that the town administrator bylaw is trying to improve government, like, and is it needed? Yes. Was it I think a charter would be the better avenue for that, and also we're not there yet. So I think if we're doing some things to streamline and try to make better, then this is something that I hear a lot of frustration around, and so we have the opportunity to address it. And ultimately, it's going to have to be town meeting that makes that decision, and it's not the select board or FinCom. If those two opinions are very different, it needs to be the body of the town.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, we're trying to make some changes to have that transparency and that sense of cohesiveness and working together between these bodies, these town bodies, and if there's certain people on the finance committee that don't agree with that, I certainly am very interested to hear their reason why they would not want that.
Absolutely.
Okay,
So,
so nobody likes C
No.
anyways.
no.
No, right.
Tamika, do you like C? No, okay.
Paul, do you like C?
I'm gonna move on, I have a note.
Okay,
But that's it for membership. Right. So the committee shall work with the town administrator, department heads, and committee chairs to refine and revise the town's proposed operating budget. Committee shall discuss and report its recommendations on the proposed budget to the town administrator.
Yep.
Committee shall submit the proposed budget at annual town meeting. That's MGL.
right.
The
Now,
first three are MGL?
I'm sorry, yeah, C is MGL.
Oh, okay. May I ask a
What?
question on
Yeah,
on
go
A?
ahead.
I just went back to look at the town administrator bylaw, and there's a section in there that says the town administrator shall consult with, and I think we added collaborate with finance and capital improvement committees when creating or amending budgets. So is it the explicit duty of the finance committee to work with the department heads or the town administrator? I feel like that's more of Austin's.
They're
role.
actually, the department heads are responsible for reporting to both the town administrator and the finance committee because the finance committee reviews the budgets. And so the department heads have to work with the finance committee.
Okay.
I think
Should we consider adding department heads to the town administrator piece then as well? Not that we're talking about town
I
administrator, but
don't actually have an objection either way,
I just wanna make sure that we're, to me, I feel like we've talked about this in the past, that, Austin regularly works with the department heads to assess their needs on that side, for capital improvements, whatever they need.
Yep.
I just wanna make sure that it's okay for Austin to be able to do that, and it's not specifically the finance committee that would be working, that Austin also has that avenue and that's open for discussion.
Yeah, I could make a case that it's implicit, but there's no problem with it being explicit.
and I guess I think if we are moving more towards a more of a professional finance team and finance committee is being more of the oversight advisory type committee versus a strong hand in developing the budget, I wonder how much it's required that they work actually with department heads and committee chairs. I can understand maybe CIPC for capital or whatever, but for other committees that are requesting funding, to have them come before and present before FinCom, I don't know. I think of how we function as a select board and have moved towards trying to have department heads and staff go more through our chief of staff, the town administrator, and not answering to 5 individual bosses, because as chief of staff, they have one boss. And so I guess that's one of my questions is longer term, and maybe that's something that needs to shake out in a charter versus a bylaw, but is there value to having FinCom almost be so in the weeds?
I can only tell you my reading of MMA.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Basically, they say that it is the select board, the town administrator, who puts together the budget. And then that budget is submitted to the finance committee for their review, and then their suggestions back to the TA and the select board as to how they want the budget to go. and you work back and forth. CIPC is there because of its capital long-term plans, but it's not really in
In
the
the
process.
day-to-day, right,
It's not really
yeah.
in the day-to-day, right? I don't know if that's what you think, Austin, or how you see it, but
Yeah, that's common, especially when you think about, that's mostly the standard practice for communities. Because you think about, the finance committee is an advisory committee to the legislative body that is town meeting. So advising and consenting on the budget, but it's your warrant. You determine ultimately what the language is on that warrant for the budget number. So if you disagree with the finance committee and you agree with my proposal, it's still your warrant and that's what you're presenting to town meeting. I've just looking at at Mass General Law, Peter, do you have explicitly, is that at the top, the powers of the finance committee?
This is chapter 39, section 16, I believe.
Yeah.
I'll look that up to be sure. And it specifically says la 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 la. I have to go back and find it because it is in this section where it specifically says submit the budget to town meeting.
You
Cause
wanna-
I do see a section saying, or, if authorized by bylaw, the selectmen, but, it's still, you think about the practice of preparing the budget, going through the whole process of review, working with departments, preparing what is a recommended budget, which is typically, that's how it works, is it's town administrator, town manager, mayor's recommended budget.
Right.
And in my experience, it's been, I present to my bosses, I present to the legislative body for their initial review, we begin a several month process of reviewing it, refining it, and then ultimately, that final transmittal to town meeting for their final blessing, and inclusion of that final bottom line number on the warrant. I don't know if it's ever happened, Peter, but what happens when the select board preparing the warrant and the finance committee disagree on that bottom line number?
The fast answer is when it happened in this town, there were two warrant articles, one authored by the select board, one by the FinCom.
And the FinCom will
That
usually
seems
make,
very clear.
and will generally make a
Like, what's-
recommendation in favor or not, and then if it's not in favor, then they present their article, I think, right? Or vice versa.
It's also, in my opinion, I was very surprised to see the finance committee making the motions.
Right, so let me go back, the very last sentence of 3916, and I'm gonna abbreviate it. In every town having a committee appointed under authority of this section, ... such committee shall submit a budget at the annual town meeting.
But you also skipped a section, such committee or the selectmen if authorized by a bylaw of the town.
True.
And in any town not having such a committee, the selectmen shall submit a budget at the annual town meeting.
Right, now, but this is where it gets interesting. Can somebody tell me what it means to submit a budget at town meeting? Cause I can't. We have interpreted it in this town as the FinCom makes the motions. And that's only because that's the way it's been done. There is nothing in law that defines submit at town meeting, what those words mean. So it could be nothing more than they present the handout. It could be nothing more than they have the first words on article discussion. It could mean lots of things. This town has historically acted in a specific way, and I have done my best to make that action undefined in law so that we can change that when we're ready to. We are still caught in a world of change in the way we're dealing with finances. I don't dispute that, and so there's a lot of this that is the way we have done it, because that's what we were told to do, basically, but fundamentally,
So what if all of those, examples that you mentioned, whether it's the handout
Yep.
or speaking first, again, just a hypothetical, what if that does differ? I don't think that's clear having the finance committee submit the budget. I think what would be better for the community, if especially if my goal for this budget season is to have community engagement sessions, public meetings to talk just strictly about the budget. I think if we're candidly, I think if we're talking about two separate budgets for 3 months or however long the process is going to go, I don't think that's clear. I think really what the board and what town meeting should decide is who do they want to own the budget, all the way up until town meeting. And if it's gonna be the finance committee, that just saved me a couple months worth of work. But if it's not, then I think I'm putting this out there, I really wanna know, because my plan in the next couple of weeks as well is to roll with the town administrators running the budget process and working through kind of like what I mentioned.
So here's the sneaky way we answered that question. The committee answered the question. We defined the town administrator as the chief financial officer. Show me a chief financial officer who does not have control of the budget.
Right, and it's right in there, right? E1, the town administrator shall create the town's balanced annual operating budget. That to me is explicit, that it's the town administrator that creates the budget. This item that we're talking about, the committee shall submit the proposed budget at the annual town meeting, just means the finance committee is the one that submits the budget, the proposed budget from the town administrator. Not that they have, it's their version of the budget, it's the town administrator's budget.
To basically say that they've seen it and have discussed it, whether they agree, have points of agreement or not, they've seen it, they've reviewed that it fits within the income and expenses are legit and everything, and whether they're happy that whatever department is getting however much versus another department, it's less of that and more just the overall oversight that we're not.
I mean, so at the end of the day, when we have the appropriations number of 20, oh no, it won't be 20 something.
20-some million.
20-some million. We'll increase, we'll put a couple more zeros on it. No, kidding, I'm kidding, everyone is watching. You know, what I'm really looking forward to is when the moderator says, select board, what is your recommendation? Hopefully it's 5-0. Finance committee, what is your recommendation? Hopefully it's, what is it, 7-0, and then there's well, if it's a perfect budget, no robust discussion is passed through, but when you have a discussion about the budget and what this is providing for the town, that I think is the most important thing at the end of the day, is what are the recommendations of the two boards that presented this number. And the process leading up to that is where they're able to review and ask questions and talk with departments about what the expenditures of the departments are, what the recommendations, what are the services, any new initiatives, so. But again, yeah, typically that is, town administrator starts, it prepares, it works with departments and then presents the preliminary proposed budget to
And-
you guys.
I guess the way I would envision, if we're going to kind of continue this model, the way I would envision it happening is if they're not that it's expected that every department head or every board and commission chair is coming in, that has a budget line item is coming in to justify in front of FinCom, because that justification has already been done through the budgeting process. And if there needs to be cuts made or really hard conversations, or there's a huge change in a budget, maybe that person or group comes in to explain, but I don't think that, I guess I struggle that the expectation historically has been that everybody's coming in to be grilled by FinCom, and when they've already gone through the process of working with within all the department heads and the town administrator to formulate something that would work. I think, I don't know.
Oh,
I think it also can cause some,
Go ahead, Jen.
call it telephone, if you will. So if Austin is working with the department heads on operating budgets and FinCom is talking to them, you know, can things get lost in translation? You know, should all those folks, department heads, committee chairs, whatever, have, like you said, a single point of contact through the town administrator And then the town administrator and the finance committee work together with the information received through the TA.
Yeah,
I guess I look at the board here, we appointed Austin, who is our chief financial officer, whose duties are to collect all the information, put together the budget and submit it to the finance committee. It's not the finance committee's job, although they have access to all the records and everything they want. They could do what they want, but it's not required that our departments go in there on their own. So when I look at that, it's as if, okay, we have Austin put together the budget, finance committee reviews it, and now we get to negotiation 101. How are we gonna make this thing work? That's where they hammer out the details, not at a town meeting. And if one party can't hammer out those details before the town, then I'm questioning one of the parties. If you can't hammer that out before the town. If
And
that
again,
makes
we wouldn't be saying that they can't speak to department heads. It's right here, and I know we haven't gotten to it, but the access, officers and committees of the town hall shall furnish the committee with what, facts, figures, other information to, what they would be asking for.
Right,
But I agree that all those, the main budget should be prepared by the TA with conversation with the department heads, committee chairs. The TA should work with the finance committee. I think there needs to be a single point of contact, and the finance committee should not be it.
Just say something real quick. So my concern is that if the bylaw is not explicit, there's going to continue to be this battle of who controls the budget. And I've been through 4 budget seasons now, and every one of them has been contentious. And it's a battle of, the town administrator, the select board, the finance committee. And so, there have been expectations placed on the town administrator by the finance committee that I don't think is very appropriate. And so I would even recommend, like where it says that they shall be given access and they can recommend these documents, I would set within a specific time frame, because I witnessed that if the town administrator did not provide it within the time that they specified, he was chastised publicly at a meeting and they refused to discuss it because they hadn't gotten it in the time that they stated it needed to be. So I think that divide and that contentiousness only makes it harder for residents to support the town as a whole.
right,
You know what I mean?
right. So Austin, this will be his first budget negotiation or budget going into it. Gary held the last one, and then we had Ron and everybody else. So you're saying that possibly there were certain requirements put on that were almost impossible to meet?
The town administrator was told that he would no longer have control of the budget spreadsheet. So he had no access to the budget spreadsheet and was not allowed to make changes until it was discussed at a finance committee meeting. And that was a
And that should
long-standing
not be
battle
how
through
that
the
was
entire budget season.
That's ridiculous.
And those are the things that, if it's not explicit in the bylaw, I worry that it could be taken advantage of, and I've watched it happen for
Yeah.
4
So,
budget seasons.
Do we have in the TA where he has access to all information involving the finances, including spreadsheets, regardless of the committee? Is that in the town administrator bylaw?
Think so, but I'd have to go back and review it.
Okay, because then that could, in terms, deal with that. Yeah, there should, if we appoint a CFO, there should be no
I
reason.
imagine it's there because he's the CFO.
I think that we had talked about it and I was just quickly looking, I have so many notes that I haven't printed out the updated changes ones, so, but I think I remember talking about that specific concern when we discussed the town administrator bylaw, that because it's also, in the past, there hasn't been the bylaw, but it's in the job description of the town administrator to provide a balanced budget and kind of be the budget holder. And if the that individual doesn't have access to the documents that they need in order to do that work, then it creates and it turns into multiple copies or versions of things.
It led to a
I mean,
lot
if
of
nonetheless, the
errors.
select board should have access to everything, let alone the town administrator. We should be able to access that information, so if they're shutting the town administrator off, they're basically shutting us off too, which I don't know how the town could accept something like that.
I also wonder if it's worthwhile putting in the bylaw that the select board is allowed to participate jointly in meetings, because that was suggested in the last budget season, so that if there was a quorum, the members could participate. And the select board was told that they could not post jointly with the finance committee, but then comments were made about how select board members weren't attending the meetings. And so I just feel like the more explicit we can be, the better.
Well,
But wait a minute,
I personally would argue that should have been a decision of the select board chair to post or not post,
Right.
whether, and because in the past it had been wanted to be a joint meeting, it had not wanted to, it's been through, and so I think that, that it's at should be at the will of the board, select board, if they want to post or not. And it would be similar if if the select board wanted to attend a conservation commission meeting, we can say we're gonna post, because if we have 3 or more members attend and we want to have a conversation about something, we need to be there. The question came about if we needed to post if we were just attending as public to listen or ask questions but not offer opinions. And it was, if you're attending, period, it should be posted. I think that
It was discouraged.
I would just ask, under what authority
Right.
does the committee have the authority to tell the select board you can't be here? On an open meeting.
But hold on, the select board, the finance committee does not have that authority. But the chair of the operating committee always decides who has voice. Always. So you can raise your hand, and if the committee chair doesn't recognize you,
We can deal
you
with
don't
that.
get to say anything.
We can
And,
do
and also, if it's a co-posted, if the select board is posted at the same time, the select board has their own meeting also, and at some point, even if they're not able to participate in whatever meeting they're co-posted with, after said meeting, they can continue to have their own discussion and not close their meeting.
True.
And so, I think it would be similar if, I think we've had in the past, you guys tonight are co-posted, it's an agreement, but we've had in the past that our DIC may have a quorum here, they aren't discussing anything, they're here just to hear the update or to provide us with an update or whatever. They're not usually co-posted, but oftentimes, they could co-post, and we could either ask them to participate in the conversation or not. Generally, if we're trying to have a conversation, we do co-post, and oftentimes in budget season, we are trying to be collaborative and have a collaborative working session discussion. And so I think that that's where the frustration comes, that if we are not able to co-post or whatever. So I don't know if it needs to go in a bylaw or not. Tamika, I 100% agree with your concern there, and I don't, I think the way that was handled was not how.
No. And there is a certain protocol that the chairman should adhere to, and that is to recognize everybody in the room. And if they don't, that's kind of a slap in the face for a chairman.
It can be, but it is the chair's option.
Well,
It is, absolutely, without question, it is the chair's option.
the chair can recognize, but if you refuse, that is a different issue, according to MMA.
Well, I have certainly specifically not recognized people until I was darn ready to discuss with them in Conservation Commission meetings.
But you-
Absolutely.
But you eventually recognized.
Eventually I did, but I
Okay.
am not obligated to.
Okay,
All
right, that's
So I'm
another,
gonna
that's
try-
another discussion.
I wanna try and get C, because based on the discussions here, should see, the committee shall submit the proposed budget of the annual town meeting, be moved to the select board bylaw.
So that the select board presents it
Yes.
or submits it, if you will?
Are you saying the select board shall submit the proposed budget at the?
Right, so it won't be in this bylaw at all. This will go, four C disappears from here and a new section shows up in the select board bylaw that says the select board shall submit the proposed budget of the annual town meeting.
Does that fly in the face of MGL?
No, as Austin read it, if that you can have a bylaw that says either the finance committee or you can have a bylaw that says the select board shall. Either one is acceptable by 3916. And you're right, I did skip over some of those words, Austin, yes.
Well, that's a pretty big move.
So I'm just cursory reading how other towns handle their FinComs, and it's by no means a comprehensive list. But a lot of it is advisory, so they are doing information on behalf of the town to kind of understand the budget, which I think is what they do. Education, they try to provide as much education to the residents, and keep them informed, which I think, to Austin's point, as chief financial officer, he's trying to make efforts to have public information sessions and everything, that it would be similar to how we were doing the 2.5 override discussions, having a FinCom member representation there is important. Advisory, they're recommending to town meeting what actions should be taken on the budget in light of the facts that they've had and the information and education that they have and they've done. And then they also help provide some oversight and representing town meeting to how the operations of the budget are going throughout the year. And so it seems like that's kind of the general overview of how things are going. Also, the reserve fund transfer is a big piece, because I think that's in statute in MGL, I'm not 100% sure.
If we move C to the select board, then we have to make changes to D. Right, the committee shall, et cetera, and report thereon to town meeting.
That's right,
There are recommendations at town meeting, so
Yes.
we're talking, okay.
that's exactly what D is.
And that's also within that same section of Mass General Law.
That's right.
Recommendations.
That is staying, there is
Okay.
no option.
Can we consider adding to C, the committee, whether it's FinCom or if it moves to select board, shall submit the proposed budget from the town administrator at the annual town meeting? Again, just for that clarity that it's the role of the town administrator to create the budget.
Well, now, isn't
There's
that
committee.
fascinating?
You'll have to repeat that, Peter.
So the committee shall submit the town administrator's proposed budget at the annual town meeting.
And then the FinCom would make recommendations on that,
On each
Budget.
warrant article.
right?
On the proposed, right?
And then, so that could be done whether it's in this committee or the select board.
I think that would provide some clarity that it is the authority of the town administrator to create the budget.
A question on that, if we say the town administrator's proposed budget, doesn't the select board have to approve the town administrator's proposed budget? And therefore, it is really a function of the select board's budget that's going to the town meeting?
There is no chance in this universe that I'm going to call it the select board's budget. Zero.
Okay,
It's his budget as CFO, period.
okay.
And if you choose not to place his budget on the warrant, good luck.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that will the town understand what's going on in terms of the TA's budget versus the select board's budget, it's like, didn't you guys just approve it? Why aren't you
The
submitting?
select board
it? So that
doesn't
was
have a
my-
budgetary role. You really don't,
Other than
It
approving
would
it.
just be submitting it.
other than putting it on the warrant. That is totality of your involvement with the budget.
Okay,
I mean, yes, you attend other meetings, you do other things, you have certain advisory roles implicit as select board members, but in terms of budget process, it's his budget that the FinCom has to comment upon. Not necessarily make changes to, but comment upon the budget. That is their role as an advisory board.
okay.
That is in fact their statutory role by Mass General laws. It's just
makes
to
sense.
look and consider and make recommendations. It doesn't mean that they're allowed to change the budget.
And to add on to that, Peter, I go back to A as well to see if that should be amended to say the committee shall work in an advisory capacity with the town administrator to refine and revise the town's proposed operating
Or
budget.
shall simply advise the town administrator.
I think.
No, not advise the town administrator, cause I still, that to me suggests
A supervisory
they're
role.
telling him, yeah.
Yep. I was gonna say, I agree, Jen, with you saying that shall work with the town administrator in a advisory capacity or something, because I think if we move that word to in front, to advise town administrator, then it becomes a supervision of the town administrator versus offering advice and feedback to what the town administrator is proposing.
Mm-hmm.
I like the thought process. I like that.
All right, we'll talk about that on, got a long list here for the next committee meeting.
And again, it all seems, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like moving in that direction aligns more with MGL, stating that it's an advisory capacity, correct?
Right, now understand that the way the finance committee has historically acted is not against Mass General Law. It doesn't violate it at all. It's just there's
Understood.
been a power grab of, and that's not, I'm not trying to
Be honest.
I'm not trying to criticize them.
Right.
There was a lack of ownership and the finance committee took ownership of the budget. And now that we have someone else to do it, their role may be
Yes.
changing.
Yeah, exactly, it needs to go back to what its intended purpose was.
Okay, those are the questions. We're gonna hit the rest of this next time. And
And
I do have,
sorry, I was gonna say, I don't disagree that at some point it would probably be beneficial to have at minimum a joint conversation with FinCom about this bylaw, potentially also asking the moderator to join in, just because some of it is the appointing authority, but we can see, but I'm not sure if the next meeting is the best opportunity to do that, or if we should get through the rest of this and see where the
Complete
big,
it all.
right,
so
where
we-
the big discrepancies are,
Yeah.
and then have the conversation. Is a little bit more where I'm going, I think.
Sounds good,
If
yeah,
that works.
yeah.
Yep.
there we go. So, the other thing I want to start settling in, hopefully this is a fast discussion. We discussed last time and Tamika looked into availability of the schools for a February-esque town meeting that avoids school vacation. And let me get my calendar up just so I can be complete and correct. So the dates that Tamika had originally discussed with the schools are, oh, that's wrong. Vacation week is the week of the 29th to the 19th to the 23rd. So she had asked about the 29th and the 7th of March. And as far as town clerk is concerned, the 7th of March is a no-go because there's an election 2 days before. So that would not sit well. Just for chuckles, I asked, had you looked at the 15th also?
You told me that was February vacation week.
Oh, that's February, so did we look at the 22nd?
That's the end of February vacation week, right?
It did.
The 22nd, yeah,
22nd is during vacation week.
that's a Friday.
22nd of February 2024 is a
Oh,
Thursday.
February, sorry, that's Thursday, yeah.
Yeah.
That's vacation week, yes.
I also wanted to clarify that Glenwood is out completely. Our recreation director said that there is no availability, so we would have to be at Naquag if we have the meeting. And they did not have availability on February 8th.
Right, that's the week that I asked you to look at. I didn't want, it's not that I'm against it, but I wasn't sure that trying to do it as people are rushing into vacation mode is the right choice also. So we're pretty much down to the 29th, as we know the school is available. We believe we have time to accomplish everything. So do we mind, does anyone object to setting the bylaw town meeting, if I can call it that, for the 29th of February?
I mean, I think that fits into what we had originally discussed, trying to look at the second half just to provide an extra week or two for prep and avoid February vacation, school vacation week. We always know that weather in February is gonna be iffy. That's even the beginning of March, even all of March is gonna be that case. So we wanted to try to do it well enough in advance of annual town meeting that we're not bumping up against that.
Right.
And I forgot about the special, or the
The
primary,
election, yeah.
the primary. And so I think that it would either be that or looking farther into March, and I think that then we start
Then we're gonna
hitting up
collide.
into sports stuff starting and everything again, as well as hitting up with the annual.
So my suggestion is the 29th, let's set it for that, and when weather comes up, then we'll figure it out. And we have options, but when we set it, but given that the 29th, I know that Anita can work up a calendar for all of the postings and everything else that needs to be done and the opening and closing of the warrant.
Yeah.
I assume, but you can tell me that I'm wrong, it wouldn't be the first time, that the intent is to have a bylaw-only town meeting
I was just gonna say,
today.
Austin, I don't know what you were thinking, but I was leaning towards bylaw only just because I think that's gonna be very heavy and we advertise it and do all the outreach as it's bylaw only, and we will have had fall town meeting already had happened and we'll be going into annual, so I'm hesitant to add the option for anything else to be added because I feel like if we start piecing together things, we suddenly have a meeting that we don't get to bylaws. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, so I don't think there's any other business that would be ready for that timeline anyways. Obviously, you could always have the citizens petition,
Something could happen.
but
But I also think that we can prepare it to have the warrant opened on one date and closed the next, and we can get you the warrant articles in a day without a problem. In fact, you might get them before you open the warrant. Depending upon what we discuss at the next meeting.
May I ask, is the board comfortable making a motion tonight to set the date, time, and location?
How do you, I'm comfortable with that, but I don't know, do you guys wanna wait? We have a
can we
regular
wait?
board meeting on Monday night, so maybe
Yeah.
we should do it at our Monday night meeting, just that way
Add it
it's,
to the agenda?
if we can add it to the
Right.
agenda, that way it's an official
I gotta clear it with the boss.
to the public, kind of.
Yeah, same here.
Good choice.
And also, I think having it as its own agenda item is,
Sure.
but,
It's on a leap day, maybe that's good luck.
oh yeah.
Maybe they'll pass smoothly and we'll be in and out.
Anything could happen, right?
Oh, we should confirm with Randy too,
Yes, absolutely.
so I'll confirm with him as well.
Randy did say that he preferred Tuesdays to Saturdays for that also.
This is a
Thursday, excuse me,
Oh, okay.
Thursdays to
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Saturdays,
Okay.
yes, I misspoke.
I
So
will check with him.
we're hoping to get all these articles done for the town meeting.
That's right.
Okay.
And so that means we need to get through this review, through legal review, and through the public information sessions. Though the last ones I can schedule in the weeks up to the town meeting, that which will be no workable, they won't change. But I think we can manage it that way.
Next week, we have a select board Monday the 18th, right?
Yes,
Nothing on the 19th though?
we don't have
Okay.
anything scheduled.
So I have it in there for some reason, I must have just messed up with the wrong.
I think we had talked about potentially having it, but then I think the 19th didn't work for, I don't remember.
So, but that is my honest to goodness last question for the night. When are we meeting next? Last Monday's agenda got a little out of hand, but that's the way it goes sometimes.
I'm hesitant, especially for these bigger ones, to keep trying to get on the regular scheduled meetings. Just because, so I don't know if we wanted to jump around and add, you know, some of the
Well,
But I-
that does open up a question about which bylaws do you actually want to review?
Yeah.
I've made this point any number of times. Do you believe that there is value in reviewing unregistered motor vehicles? Do you believe that there is value? Now, I would say the answer to this next question is yes. Of the new public consumption bylaw, yes, because there are significant changes there, even though they aren't directly impactful to the select board, but still there's things we need to discuss about that. There are lots of little bylaws, several coming up, and some big ones still. I mean, town council is a big one, and that's so substantially new, you really need to review it. So FinCom, CIPC, and town council are really essential. I think public consumption is essential for your review. Scenic roads, but getting a permit to cut a driveway into a road, is there value in you, well, there may be value in the Board of Public Works reviewing that one.
So I guess we have kind of been flip-flopping between trying to do bylaws on our off Monday nights and the Wednesdays. And neither are great for me personally. I think that they both have issues for all of us. So I don't know, looking at next week, 18th is our regular scheduled meeting, the 20th would be the Wednesday. Then the Paul will be out on the 20th. Then the 25th would be the off Monday. And then the 27th would be the following, that Wednesday. I don't know how the 25th, Monday the 25th looks for everybody, that's the off Monday.
It's okay here.
I'm okay.
Sorry,
This room's available.
sorry, what'd you say, Monday the 25th?
Yeah, Monday,
September 25th?
yeah, that's an off Monday.
That's Yom Kippur. No,
Oh,
I'm just kidding, I'm just kidding.
Said that.
no, it's important if we,
If it is Yom Kippur, we should probably know that.
I mean, it is, I don't celebrate it, I don't know if anybody else in the room does, but can you technically do it on?
I think technically we can.
It's not a recognized town holiday.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause we're not
Yeah,
closed that
I'm
day.
good.
Jen, can you do the 25th, Monday, the September 25th?
Mondays at the moment are pretty tough for me because I have both kids have soccer, but if it works for everybody else, I can try and get some coverage to get my assigned kid to soccer practice with somebody else.
The other option would be Wednesday, the 27th. Austin, Tamika, I know every other Monday is tough for you,
I can't do Wednesday,
Tamika.
I'm sorry.
Actually, it's changed for me, so I'm good every other Monday. It's every other Wednesday. That's tough
Okay.
for me now.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Austin, I don't know if you have a preference.
It's the day after my birthday, if you wanna.
Bringing a cake?
Bring some cake.
Yeah, I'm fine, yeah, I'll be here.
Oh, the 27th?
Yeah.
I can't
Sorry,
do
we
it.
have we have a committee meeting.
Okay,
Peter and I will not be here.
so can we tentatively plan on Monday, the 25th then? Jen, I know it's tough for you. And
Yeah, if I have notice, let me see what I can do.
okay, and we'll have Zoom available, of course, so even if you need to do it from a ball field or whatever, I know it's not ideal, but
Yeah, I know, sorry, just now that soccer has started, I signed my kids up for the days before I knew I was gonna be on the select board, so it just,
no,
No excuse, Jen.
all of us have a lot that we're juggling, so I appreciate everyone's willingness to kind of work with us to try to get these through. For me personally, it's important to get these before town because I've been on multiple boards of iterations of these. The committee has done a lot, the ad hoc bylaw committee has done a lot of work, and just to get them before town and get a bylaw committee, a formal bylaw committee seated to continue the work forward, I think is important. So I appreciate everyone's.
Leah, were there any small ones that you wanted added to the end of Monday's agenda? Or
Let me take a look and see, cause I was
Okay.
yeah, I feel like even the small ones end up being big.
That's fair.
So, but I'll take a look and
Sure,
and
whatever you
see, or
wanna do,
Peter,
I
if
just
you
wanna
have
make
any
sure.
recommendations, but I feel like, I don't know for unregistered motor vehicles, how the board feels there'll be a lot of conversation around that. If the board feels there'll be a lot of conversation, I know public consumption has changed significantly, but I'm not sure how much conversation there'll be around that one. So let me take a look and see,
Yeah,
Peter.
the
if you
fast
have
answer, public consumption adds public consumption of marijuana.
Right.
That's it. That's, I mean, philosophically, that's what it adds.
So, is that okay? Does that work for the board?
Sure.
Jen, that works for you? As best as it can? It's 8:15, so I appreciate everyone's time, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Alright, I don't wanna hear any questions, comments, or concerns. Roll call, Harry.
Aye.
Aye.
Galvin, aye.
Jen, go ahead.
Ledger I.
Whitman, aye. We are adjourned at 8:15 exactly.